Hi, everybody. Welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. I got an email from Anonymous. Subject line, April 6, 2006, President Nelson sealed to Sister Nelson. And then in the email, April 6th, officiated by President Hinckley. And then they provide a link to a LDS Living article. And then, thank you for all your work, Jared. It's outstanding and vital information. Anonymous. So, I don't know why this caught my eye. I can't remember what video I had done around that time, December 31st, when this email was sent. That was the day that I did my New Year's Eve live stream, but I don't remember exactly what I may have said about April 6th, but I've been wanting to make a spreadsheet, like a timeline of all the significant events that have taken place on April 6th. So I'm going to show you this new spreadsheet. It's by no means complete. None of them are. It's a continual effort. But I started it. I used BYU's Scripture Citation Index website, this right here. Did a search in General Conference talks for April 6th. And I've added some items to my spreadsheet. Before we look at the spreadsheet, let's talk about this year in April 6th. Okay. I've gone over this a few times recently. This is one of my newer spreadsheets called Timeline Jubilees. I've finally renamed it from Judaism Jubilees to Timeline Jubilees. And it has all these different Jubilees that have been observed over the years. I'm not going to explain the whole thing. We're just going to focus on this part right here. So, in the 7th year of the church, 1836, the Kirtland Temple was dedicated, and Joseph Smith declared a jubilee. And according to the Joseph Smith Papers website, in the source note or in the historical note, it said that the jubilee ended on April 6th of 1836. Then, in here, if you want to come here, the link for my spreadsheets is in the description box of each video. Just double click on this cell and then you can read it, or you can pause and read it right now. 7 years later, of 1843, so this was now the 14th year of the church, Joseph Smith declared another jubilee. Now, I don't know why he was using the word jubilee, because in the Bible, this would more correspond to a sabbatical year, or in Hebrew, a Shemitah, which is every 7 years. But whatever, he was calling them jubilees. This is the last dispensation. And in this case, he declared it starting on April 6th of 1843. Okay, so 1836, that's when it ended. And then April 6th of 1843 is when it began. Now, I'm not aware that the church has continued this 7-year cycle, but if they have, and we just don't know about it, or if the Lord continues to work on this timing, then what's interesting is that 2025 is the 28th Joseph Smith Jubilee, or sabbatical year, or Shemitah, whatever you want to call it. It also happens to be President Nelson's 7-year anniversary. That's just in a few days here. And April 6th, which is the point of this video, this year, it's going to be during General Conference, and it's going to be on Sunday. Of all years, one of these sabbatical years, it's going to be on Sunday. So this April 6th may be special. And then next year, the Salt Lake Temple seems like it's going to be completed. I'm going to change this from rededicated to completed, because Mindy from Temples of Jesus channel and Caitlin from Anticipating Christ's Return, they both pointed out that President Nelson, in his General Conference talk from this last General Conference, said this: the preservation and renovation of the Salt Lake Temple and all other areas on on Temple Square have been underway for nearly 5 years. Present projections indicate that this work will be completed by the end of 2026. So it's not clear to me if he's just referring to the actual construction and renovation, or if the entire process, including the dedication, is going to be completed by 2026. So that's in question. And then let me just read this really quick. This is from the Church News podcast, episode 189. And this is Sarah Jane Weaver interviewing Andy Kirby, Special Projects Department and Director of Historic Temple Renovations. And she asks, when's it going to be completed? And he says, well, we have a very specific date that we're working to. And I've committed to Brent and other church leaders to meet that date. But until they announce it, I say 2026. Again, they don't say rededication, although they could be referring to that. I don't know. But the point is, next year, which if you did Jubilees in the traditional way, where you do 49 years and then the 50th year is a Jubilee, then 2026 would be the fourth Jubilee in church history. So that's when the Salt Lake Temple is scheduled to be completed, quote unquote. But anyway, let's get back to April 6th, and I'll show you what I found. Let's see. Did that. Okay. Oh, and then there's this really quick. This is a talk by Elder David A. Bednar, the April 2014 General Conference, bear up their burdens with ease. Today is April 6th. We know by revelation that today is the actual and accurate date of the Savior's birth. April 6th also is the day on which the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints was organized. I felt it necessary to bring this up because sometimes people want to say, well, he wasn't actually born on April 6th. There's da-da-da. And then they go into the arguments. I'm going with Elder Bednar. He's an apostle of the Lord. Okay. In the church, not just him, but others seem to go with that. So I'm going with the prophets and the apostles. Okay. Here's the spreadsheet. It's called Timeline April 6th. Excuse me. And we'll just go thing by thing. So first we have April 6th of 1830. The church was established or organized. The next one is April 6th of 1841. The cornerstone of the Nauvoo Temple was laid. For this, I have quotes right here as like a reference for this information. Again, you can just double click on this and it'll show the whole thing. But I'm going to go ahead and go to, this is, do I not have, it's out of order. This is President Nelson's General Conference talk, the October 2021 General Conference, the name of the talk, The Temple and Your Spiritual Foundation. And this is in the footnotes. This is footnote 9. The cornerstone for the Nauvoo Temple was laid on April 6, 1841, just a few months after Joseph Smith received the revelation to build it. The Nauvoo Temple had augmented functions. For example, the Lord explained that a baptismal font was needed for the saints to be baptized for those who were dead. Okay, so Nauvoo Temple, a very important temple in the history of the church. Cornerstones laid April 6th. All right, let's go back to the spreadsheet. The next one is the cornerstone of the Salt Lake Temple was laid on April 6th of 1853. Let's see. It's this one right here. This is a talk by Elder Stevenson, April 2020 General Conference, A Good Foundation Against the Time to Come. And he says, at General Conference in April 1851, members of the church voted unanimously to sustain a motion to build a temple to the name of the Lord. 2 years later, on February 14th, which is 2 sevens, by the way, 1853, the site was dedicated by Heber C. Kimball in a public ceremony attended by several thousand saints, and ground was broken for the foundation of the Salt Lake Temple. A few months later, on April 6th, The massive cornerstones of the temple were laid and dedicated with elaborate ceremonies that included a color guard and bands in a procession led by church leaders from the old tabernacle to the temple site, where remarks and prayers were offered at each of the 4 stones. So before I continue, hopefully you get a sense, especially if you're new to the church, that April 6th is pretty important. I've always known that my entire life. We don't talk about it like a whole lot, really, but you can see that in the future, whether it's Second Coming related or not, significant things are probably going to happen on future April 6th, right? And this year in particular is it's like a prime time for something significant to happen. Again, Second Coming related or otherwise. Okay, let's move on. Okay, the next one is April 6th of 1877. You got 2 sevens there. 7 is obviously an important number. We talk about it a lot on this channel. So that's when the St. George, Utah temple was dedicated. This is the longest operating temple in church history because the Kirtland temple fell into the hands of different organizations, which just recently came back into the church last year. And then the Nauvoo temple was destroyed and then rebuilt by President Hinckley. So the St. George, Utah temple, the longest operating temple in the church, 1877, and dedicated on April 6th. So that's interesting. Next, April 6th of 1893, 40 years later. That's another one of those numbers, 40. It took 40 years to do this. It was finally dedicated in that year on April 6th. Dang, I should have pulled it up. Well, if you go to my spreadsheet called Quotes A through Z, you see all these spreadsheets down here. Click on these 3 lines at the bottom left, and then go to Quotes A through Z. And then go down to Salt Lake Temple, 4 angels released. But President Wilford Woodruff and President Joseph Fielding Smith said that the 4 angels described in the book of Revelation that were at the 4 corners of the earth waiting to bring judgment upon the earth, that they were released with the dedication of the Salt Lake Temple. So again, this is one reason why I'm looking forward to its rededication, because up until this point, it hasn't been rededicated. There was only this first dedication. And so maybe when it's rededicated, maybe their mission will be done. We'll have to wait and see. Okay, next. April 6th of 1930, special general conference held on the 100th birthday of the church. And remember, it was Elder Stevenson in this last general conference who was talking about a decade never to be forgotten. And part of the reason he said that is because we're going to have the 200th anniversary of the establishment of the church. So let's go ahead and read what Elder L. Tom Perry, who's passed away now, of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, thou shalt give heed unto all his words. And this talk, interestingly, was given in the April 2000 General Conference, the first General Conference of this millennium. Okay, he says, there was a special conference held at the time the church reached its 100th birthday. We find this record from the 100th annual conference held in the tabernacle on Sunday. Okay, that year, the 100th anniversary of the church, you guys. And April 6th in that year happened to be on Sunday. Okay, again, here we are, 2025. We're going to have another April 6th on a Sunday. So Sunday, April 6th, 1930. Quote, in accordance with the instructions previously issued by the first presidency of the church, the following program was carried out in all the wards and branches of the church, commencing at 10 a.m. Sunday, April 6th, where arrangements had been made for the people to assemble in their local chapels and listen by means of radio equipment to the services as they were broadcast from the tabernacle in Salt Lake City. The building was crowded to capacity, every seat being every seat being taken, and the aisles and doorways and every other available space occupied. This is from Conference Report, April 1930, page 2. So, they did something very special back then. They did like a church-wide broadcast, which I don't know the history of it. I doubt that there had been a church-wide broadcast like this up until this point in church history. But Elder Stevenson, talking about the 200th anniversary, said that we don't know the details yet of what the church is going to do, but it's probably going to be pretty grand when we get to that point, 2030. So, okay, so that's interesting. Let's move on to the next one. April 6th of 1936, President Heber J. Kimball announced his church welfare program. So this is from a talk from the April 2011 General Conference by Bishop H. David Burton, presiding bishop. The name of the talk is The Sanctifying Work of Welfare. A few decades later, the world groaned under the burden of the Great Depression. It was during that time, on April 6th, 1936. So I don't know. When I first saw this as I was going through the Scripture Citation Index, I first thought I saw 1836 because I see that date all the time because that's the year that the Kirtland Temple was dedicated. So I just my mind automatically made this 1836. But I don't know. Interestingly, 100 years later, let's see. It was during this time, on April 6, 1936, that President Heber J. Grant and his counselors, J. Reuben Clark and David O. McKay, announced what would later become known as the welfare program of the church. So just another, and that was kind of a big deal. It still is a big deal, but announced on April 6th. All right. Let's see. What's the next one? Go up a little ways. Okay. April 6th of 1974. President Spencer W. Kimball was sustained as prophet. And, well, I guess I don't need to read this, but this is a talk from Elder Brent H. Nielson of the 70, A Call to the Rising Generation. On April 6, 1974, the church sustained a new prophet, President Spencer W. Kimball. So I don't know, I guess he just felt like including that date in his talk, but I think he was highlighting just the fact that he was sustained on April 6th. Okay. So I didn't know that until now about President Kimball. All right, the next one. April 6, 1980. The First Presidency and the Quorum of the 12 Apostles issue a proclamation on the 150th anniversary of the organization of the church. Okay, so we were just talking about the 100th anniversary. Now we're talking about the 150th. And they put out a proclamation. And we don't really talk about this one too much. It's just simply called Proclamation. It's not, proclamation on the family or proclamation on the restoration of the priesthood. It's just proclamation, April 1980, April 6th right here. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints was organized 150 years ago today on this sesquicentennial anniversary. We issue to the world a proclamation concerning its progress, its doctrine, its mission, and its message. Now, I went through this. I was wondering if maybe they included Isaiah 40, verse 5, the one that says, "And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together." No, that's not in here, or anything else really. I didn't really look at it too closely, but that scripture is not in here, in case you were wondering. Okay, the next one. That brings us to April 6th of the year 2000. That's the year that the Palmyra, New York temple was dedicated. President Hinckley, I have this quote on my quotes A through Z spreadsheet. Just look under Palmyra, New York temple. But he said that this was perhaps the most important temple in the church, or like most significant, because it's right there in Palmyra, New York, where the Sacred Grove is, where the first vision happened. And it's interesting that it's the 77th temple. I don't think that was an accident. If you go to my spreadsheet called Signs, Church Specific, I have on there that there was like this great geomagnetic storm. I think they call it the Great Geomagnetic Storm of April 6th and 7th of the year 2000. But on the day that the temple was dedicated, the aurora was seen. So that's interesting. There was also a rain event where the rain stopped for the dedication. So there was a lot associated with this. And it was also a church-wide, well, I don't know if it went outside the United States, but it was a church-wide broadcast. I think the first time that they've ever done that for a temple. So that was really special. Was there anything else I wanted to say? Oh yeah, I just wanted to point out, so we've already covered it, but I'm on churchofjesuschristtemples.org. This is a private website. It's not a church website, but it's like the best temple website. And I didn't realize until today that you've only had a couple temples that have been dedicated on April 6th. So we talked about the laying of the cornerstone of the Nauvoo temple and the Sali temple. But then as far as like actual dedications, it's only been the St. George, Utah temple, the Salt Lake temple, and then the Palmyra, New York temple. And that's it. Don't mind these. This is from a previous video. And that's it. So, and I didn't see any other like groundbreaking or announcement dates on April 6th. So I feel like that just goes to show you that April 6th is like, it's like a reserved date for special things in special, all temples are significant, but these temples, these three are highly significant. The longest, well, the first temple built after the pioneers came to Utah and the longest operating temple, the Salt Lake temple, the headquarters temple of the church, and then the Palmyra, New York temple, the 77th temple, April 6th. Okay, let's see. Let's move on. Okay, and that brings us to the next two. April 6th of the year, April 6th of the year 2004, Marjorie Hinckley, the wife of President Gordon B. Hinckley, passed away. And I only know that because he brought that up in this general conference talk called The Women in Our Lives. This is the October 2004 general conference, so the next general conference after it happened. And he says, "My brethren and sisters, at the outset, if you will bear with me, I wish to exercise a personal privilege. 6 months ago, at the close of our conference, I stated that my beloved companion of 67 years was seriously ill. She passed away 2 days later," which that's kind of interesting, so close to general conference. And then he says, "It was April 6th, a significant day to all of us of this church." So I don't see that as insignificant. I don't think that he did either, and not just on a necessarily a personal level. This is the prophet's wife. So you have that happened. And then the last one, and this brings us back full circle. This is what the email was about President Nielson. This is from his April 2018 general conference talk, Revelation for the Church, Revelation for Our Lives. This was one of his first talks as president of the church. So this was his first general conference. He became president of the church on January 14th of 2018. And he says, "Then the Lord brought Wendy Watson to my side We were sealed in the Salt Lake Temple on April 6th, 2006. How I love her. She is an extraordinary woman, a great blessing to me, to our family, and to the entire church. And then there's a picture of them maybe on that day. I don't know. Well, I mean, they're not dressed like it. Whatever. They got sealed on that day. And I'm sure that was intentional. And it's kind of weird because you have these like two, I mean, just a couple years apart, 2004 and 2006. You have these April 6th events with these wives of these presidents of the church. President Nielson wasn't president of the church at that time, but he's president of the church now. So, okay. So, this was kind of eye-opening for me, honestly. And I know that I don't have it all. So if you have, or if you know of any other significant church events, well, do I want to add things outside of just like church history? Well, whatever you got. If you know of anything significant that's happened on April 6th, send it my way. Send me an email and I'll probably do a follow-up video. This is a good thing to do. For one, I like mapping all these things out and tracking things. For all we know, maybe this will become significant at some future date, but it's always good to see the big picture. And this is how I know how to do it with spreadsheets. So yeah, maybe we'll be visiting this again in the future. Maybe we'll have some realizations, see some patterns or something. But already with what we have, I think it's pretty interesting. Okay, well, that's going to be it for this one. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. Like this video if you liked it. Leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also, make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.